Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. In the late 90s, Alain Silberstein, architect turned watch designer, released this, the Bolido, one of the original modern oversized watches and a real trailblazer. Built in 500 pieces, as you see here in stainless steel. It features Silberstein's playful design ethic, as well as his Mondrian-esque preoccupation with fundamental shapes and primary colors. So the watch was considered huge by the standards of its time, and there wasn't a whole lot comparable, short of a few IWC Portuguesers and Panerai Luminors back in the late 1990s. This thing was really in a class by itself, or at least in a class with very, very few. It's almost quaint, though, when you consider the actual size of it by today's standards. 32 millimeters across, not including the crown. It measures 12.6 millimeters thick and 48 millimeters from lug to lug. Now, if you want to measure between the lugs, you can see it actually has a cylinder that rotates and holds the bracelet. But within that cylinder, there's actually a traditional spring bar. So you can use a strap that is a standard 22 millimeters inside this unusual lug junction. You just have to size up a 22 strap, remove the spring bar holding the bracelet, and then the strap sits inside this rotating tumbler that joins to the bracelet. Ergonomics are fantastic, actually. You throw the watch on the wrist, it's still an imposing thing, but it's no longer so huge that an average-sized man wouldn't consider wearing it in polite company. It was a provocative piece by the standards of the day, combining Mondrian with Art Deco, and you might be surprised to know that those contemporary movements, De Style and Art Deco, didn't necessarily overlap, but somehow they coexist successfully in this watch. I'd recommend it for a wrist 15 centimeters circumference or smaller. You can see when I look at it from over the top, the case actually isn't out to the edge of my wrist, and the bizarre double joint to the bracelet means it actually drapes around the wrist quite easily. There's a lot of pivoted articulation there, and surprisingly, at under 13 millimeters thick, it will fit underneath the cuff, even though the edge is very sheer. It looks thicker than it is. It's a solid thing, and it must have been remarkably impressive by the standards of its time. Pick it up, and you can really feel where the money went. Getting a little bit closer, we'll take a look at the bracelet. Alain Silberstein started his company back in the late 1980s. I believe 1986 was his first year at Basel, but he didn't get a booth until 87, and then he continued until 2012. Today, he's a famed designer and collaborator with everyone from Louis Arad to MB&F, and he's relaunching his brand. Part of that has been creating a service program for his original watches. So if you reach out to Alain, he will actually hook you up with one of his collaborators who's agreed to be factory service for the reborn Silberstein brand. It's coming back with spectacularly complicated and expensive watches, but he said to me in the interview you can see over on Watchbox Studios that taking care of his original watches is a priority, so yes, you can get service for these. Now, in terms of design, there's a lot going on. It's not just the contrast between the media blasted links and the polished ones. It's that you have these descending echelons of links. You see how they're draped diagonally across the bracelet? Everything was thought out. Taking a quick look in profile, you can see that the links are polished on their outer face. And the assembly is unconventional, but you'll see that there are quite a few of screw-fixed individual removable links on the bottom. This was not a cheap bracelet to make in the late 90s. Now you could see the logo of Alain Silberstein and the French touch. Indeed, this is a French-made watch. The Silberstein watches were traditionally made in France, and you could see some of the elements, such as punched-out metal, that were recurring themes across the line. There are also some divots. You can see the clasp is a combination of a polished and evacuated clamshell lock, and the rest is in satin. You can see these divots can be used with the internal spring bar to re-anchor the bracelet and fine-tune the fit. So there's a couple of different ways to make this fit. It's important when you're buying these to get a full bracelet, as over time people tend to lose the links. This one is spectacular because it really does have all of the bracelet links intact, and the bracelet and the clasp are in great condition. You can see the tumblers can be removed using screws and bars, and then we have a set of flanges. It's actually like two rails that flank the center. And you can see that the sapphire itself is cambered to match the arc of the case. That's not easy to do. It's hard to build a sapphire like this and make it water resistant. This watch was 30 meters in the day. So this was an ambitious construction in its time. We have polished, gleaming metal indices and a gleaming metal scale for the power reserve indicator. The name Alain Silberstein, as well as the company logo, ghosted underneath the sapphire. We have the date up at 12 o'clock. We have those fundamental shapes and colors for a little I guess you could call it a starfish spinner that represents constant seconds, and then a blue baton for the minutes, and then we have the hours in red. It looks like it might be loomed, but it's not actually. I'll demonstrate some of the functions here. The watch sets with a hacking seconds function. If you get really close, you can see the starfish has stopped, and there is a quick set for rapidly adjusting the date if you wish to. We'll flip it all over and take a look at the case back. Again, 500-piece limited edition made in France. You can see there was that same customized punched out metal motif used on the rotor, both rotor bridges and actually all three of the rotor bridges and base plate have been engine turned, an unusual use of engine turning. This is an ETA 2892A2 bidirectional automatic winding, 4 Hz beat rate, 21 joules, 42-hour power reserve. It's got the quick set and the hacking seconds. And if you look, you can see there's actually a flared spoke balance. So this is a high-grade balance and hairspring assembly. I believe they used the top grade, which is just one down from chronometer. You can see how the back of the watch is presented. Bolido automatique, boîtier acier, that means it's stainless steel, 30 meters étanche, individual numbering, and of course made in France. And the movement was custom finished for Alain Silberstein. These have become highly collectible, and again, not all of them are fully intact with the bracelet, the clasp, and all the links. So reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.